Alright guys, welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters career qualifiers here for Cologne, as we now have our next series on the way, and it's going to be a bit of a team kill. We have Sue versus Journey, obviously both of these players fighting for SK Telecom T1, and without further ado, let's jump into our next series as we have spawning up to the top left hand corner here as our red Zerg. It's Sue. And down to the south, we have our pink Terran, it's Journey. Alright, so, oddly enough, in our previous qualifiers, in our previous Korean qualifiers even, for Singapore, I recall these guys actually meeting one another. So a little bit unfortunate for these guys, as Journey previously was able to take that series 2-1. We actually haven't seen anything of Journey in terms of Pro League, but of course we've seen this Zerg, Sue, in Pro League. I think he stands in this round of Pro League. I'm pretty sure he has a winning record. I think it's like 2-1 or 3-1 or something like that. But Sue in general was one of those Zerg players that at the start of Kesper transferring over to StarCraft 2, he was one of the players that started to impress me. Fallen off a little bit from that point, though. But certainly one of the stronger Zergs when it comes to SK Telecom. Alright, so let's see what is going to happen here. I do love casting me some TVZ, though. TVZ is a fantastic matchup to cast, and I'll be curious to see if Journey's actually going to go for something like a mech build. Would like to see some mech. Mech's always fun to watch nowadays. But anyway, gas opening here from Journey, so looking to go for looks like a Reaper here at this point, and Sue's going to get over there pretty quickly with Overlords. Having a little bit of a poke around, a sneak peek at what is going to happen here from Journey. Of course, Journey does have the option to go for Reactor if he wanted to, before Reaper, and then get out 2 Reapers afterwards, but he's just going to choose and opt for the initial Reaper that we mentioned before, which will keep him in good stead, and have a little bit of a look around, see what's going on against his Zergy opponent, who for now just has a spawning pool on the way, adds on a gas 2, just to make sure that he can transition on quite nicely. And for now, I'm curious to see how Journey's actually going to play out, because the only series that I can recall of his was the previous one in the Intel Extreme Masters. I don't think we cast it, but I think somebody else did via VODs. It may have been Thanius. I may not be recalling the right series. But regardless, Journey here does poke on forwards and have a little bit of a look around. He notices that expansion, he'll poke up here, and these Zerglings will try and buy time for the Queens to end up finishing up, which is all important, but a second Reaper is going to follow this as well. For now though, just adding on that command center, adding on the factory. Second gas goes down, so there is an opportunity here for Journey to transition on to a bit more of a heavier tech-based aggressive maneuver here. Obviously, with that factory finishing up, and quite happily add on the Hellions, and they'll rendezvous with these Reapers to continue on the pressure. And then if he wants to, he can go for Cloak Banshees, which would be nice to see. But tries to poke up, sees and identifies the threat of the Queen on the high ground. Doesn't want to go any further, doesn't want to venture forth more so than he needs to. Nice little poking, but in the end, Sue's always going to be able to retreat on back from that. And there we have the Starport with Tech Lab. So pretty much the standard staple build coming out from Journey here, whilst Journey also just erects himself a little bit of a wall at the front of the natural. Sue's just holding on, not really bringing in too much gas, just going for that mineral focus. He only needed the gas initially for that speed, and then from there on he can throw them back into gas whenever he needs. But realistically, he really wants to get his third base up. He really wants to establish that. You've got to be careful though on this map as a Zerg. Ooh, a nice surround though. Journey wasn't really paying attention too well to that second Reaper. But on this map, you've got to be careful as a Zerg not to transfer your drones over to that third base too quickly. Otherwise, you are going to get them roasted up completely by Hellion numbers. And interestingly enough, he's actually stopped at 4 Hellions. Oh, okay, he starts production again. So he notices the third. As I said before, you cannot transfer over there quicker than you should. It can be a little bit easier on other maps, but Polar Knight's one of the ones that's big danger zone for transferring over there too quickly. Nice control here by the Lings to try and catch that Marine, and he does get it and heads straight on out. But at the same time, one thing to note is that with that initial Reaper going down, there really isn't as much here for the Hellions to tank with. And Su has been playing a very heavy Queen style, which should be able to shoot these Hellions away, actually, if he brings maybe a few more units along with this. Not only that, but two of these Queens do have energy for transfuse, so that's going to help out considerably as well. One of the Banshees does end the fray, though. Nice transfuse on one of those Queens. Should be able to push that away, but at the same time, Zergling's looking for the counter. Managed to break on in, kill the Hellions, and, well, these units are still going to try and go for it at the front, but I don't think they can do a whole lot. The cloak has been activated, but another transfuse will keep that Queen alive. Right now, Su has been so ridiculously cost-effective in this game that Journey's going to have a really hard time playing out of this. Unit count-wise, we have 55 workers to 25. Su has been on fire, really being able to shut down a lot of what Journey's been trying to attempt. And now his economy is pretty much in tatters. It's very difficult to recover from that position. He needs to do something with these Hellions. He has the offensive capabilities to make something happen. That one Zergling tries to dance away. And moving on the right-hand side now. That hatchery is very low. If Journey could somehow kill off a few drones, kill that hatchery as well, then maybe he could bring himself back in. But there is always the third command center to try and equalize the odds in terms of those SCV production. Obviously also double engineering bay goes down for him as well, playing very greedy from this point on. Spire will finish up in a second for Su, and then he can start using those Mutalisks to dance around behind his opponent's bases. Obviously, whoa, the Hellions actually get in and find the Spire as well. That's a great position for him. Not only can he try and do some damage, maybe in the main or natural, but he can also now prepare for that Spire, which is very important. 19 worker kills. Su has let his opponent back into this. Of course, not many more drones will end up dying. Just that last remaining one. So 24 workers do end up falling to that. Now 39 to 53. So Journey gets the damage done that he needs to keep himself in it. Otherwise, it would have been really bad news bears. I mean, recovering from a 55 to 25 is difficult enough without getting any drone kills. All right. So the third base will be able to land eventually. Journey's looking to land this in a more aggressive position and assert himself on the map. Whilst these missile turrets finish up for him to try and shoo off the Mutalisks once they come along. Not too bad in terms of the kills between these Banshees to just cycle around those bases if they want to later on. Especially if he's able to get into one of the bases like with a strong marine force and kill off these spore crawlers really quickly. They'll come back to haunt Su if he's able to find the right location. But aside from that, not too much happening. I mean, +1/1 starts up for Su here. Baneling Nest gets added on as well. So Ling Bane Muta is the standard composition that we're seeing here from Su. Really nice utilization of the block off on that third base location. So just so that Su will... Journey's going to deny that for just a little. And we even have Widow Mine production on the way as well. So as standard can be from both of these players at this point. The Mutalist looking to find a position over on the right-hand side. There's only one missile turret there. Was spotted very rapidly there by Su, so just sits barely out of range of that and harasses away at this refinery. Taking a little bit of damage, but in the end, that Mutalisk will heal that up. It's very difficult for you to kill a Mutalisk off with just a missile turret if your opponent's dancing well enough. And a lot of Zerglings now in production here for Su, as he realizes that push is imminent. Actually, wow, he took his third base in the more defensive location. So he doesn't feel as if he has enough army and enough production to really assert himself in between these bases, which I think is the wise decision considering how much damage was actually done by Su so early on in this game. So a nice choice here by Journey. Brings his units back and looks to apply some pressure in the main, but there's already the Spore Crawlers here. So Su's well prepared for anything that would occur. And I mean, these benches have even been spotted. No. Oh, okay, so they haven't been spotted. I thought they had for a second there, as he was moving over in that direction, but in the end, it was just for safety's sake. We have Blue Flame as well as Thors being mixed into the production here, so interesting choices by Journey, looking to add on Hellions as well as Thors. Could even go up to Hellbats, actually, which actually don't do too badly against Zerglings and Banelings. Especially if they're split up slightly, you're able to soak up quite a bit of that damage. The two Banshees will try and do something up in this top left, but again, with the Spore Crawlers there, it's all too risky. You can't really stray too far forwards. Even with the Cloak there, they are still revealed. The Spore Crawler's still in range of them, so one's going to end up falling very, very quickly. And meanwhile, a big push through the middle of the map. The Zerglings do get the surround, and Banelings will end up connecting with quite a little bit of that. The Banshee at the back here, still trying to be annoying. I think he was barely in range of that Spore Crawler. I had to move away from it. And the Thor decides to find itself an Overlord. But again, a lot of the attention there from Journey was focused in the middle of them. When it was focused on using the Banshees, basically. And he really didn't have the most pristine control against those Lings and Banelings in the middle. So that was a good trade there from Su. Despite a few of those Widow Mines getting 1 or 2 shots off, Su's army now swells 104 to 87 army supply. And Journey continues to add on production facilities. Now, of course, his army is becoming more and more fearsome. But as it becomes more and more fearsome with the Hellbats and the Thors, so too does it become a little bit more immobile against this Ling, Baneling, Mutalisk army. So that's something that he has to be careful about. And also, he still only has 1 Widow Mine. Now, this is something that we were seeing Fantasy actually do in Pro League. Mix in, like, Hellbats and Thors into his composition with a lot of Marines. I think there may have been some Banelings over here. Apologies for missing that. But one thing against Ling, Muta, Bane that does work out quite well just in general is Widow Mines. They are a little bit unpredictable in terms of how they're going to execute their fire, but it still works really well. So I'm curious to see whether or not we see the transition back into those, or if he's just going to stick with this. Because we've seen Ling, Muta, Bane actually work quite nicely against this composition, if you're not in the right spot. A little bit of a drop in the main, though. Trying to bring his opponent back, sees the Hive morphing in. That's a nice pickup there for Journey at least. We are lagging a bit there. I can't help but feel it's probably due to the fact that we haven't updated the thing fully, but whatever the case, it doesn't really matter for now. Journey now pushing through the middle towards this third base and decides to pull on back. He just wants to clear up the majority of that creep, but creep is already extending around the right-hand side, and that's going to give Su the perfect opportunity to branch in from multiple directions if he wants to try and get a good surround on his opponent's army. Unit counts 42 Banelings and 20 Mutalisks in with all of those Zerglings. As they flood on forwards, will they be able to get the connections that they need with those Banelings? As the Zerglings are trying to wrap around a lot of this army, and Banelings do connect with a lot of this despite the splits. As will that Thor also fall. How many Mutalisks are left over? They were never with the army. Oh my god. They were just putting on some harassment in the main base. Su felt so comfortable here in game number 1 to take that entire army with just his Lings and Banelings alone, that his Mutalisks were able to get a lot of worker kills. Over on the left-hand side, Banelings just busting on through, leaving all of those poor little SCVs very, very vulnerable to these Lings that do have 2-2. So he needs to repair that bunker, and indeed he will get it. But at the same time, Mutalisk still applying pressure on the right-hand side. Journey is so against the ropes. Somehow he needs to get a 4th base whilst also trying to do some damage to his opponent, but there's a lot of Banelings morphing in. He's only just seen the bare glimpse of a few of them. He stims forward. He has to be careful about that. There were a lot of Banelings behind that smoke, and I don't think he fully anticipated exactly how much there was there. It wasn't the most amazing of trades for Sue, but that being said, it wasn't the most amazing of trades for Journey either, so it doesn't... because Sue is on the more bases behind this, this is working out in Sue's favor. He's going to continue to push on, and there you go, GG. Game number 1 goes to Sue. And that means we'll jump on to game number 2 in just a second. So a bit of an interesting game there. Sue managing to save his 3rd base pretty nicely. And I'm not sure what that says because it's in Korean. But we've got an invite to game number 2. Great. So, Sue 1 game away from advancing on. I will say good luck to these guys and quickly see if there's any extra updates in the bracket whilst this is loading. I don't see any. Sulky versus Hush. Parting advanced on versus Alicia. Right, okay, so Classic versus Dia is going to happen soon. Finn, tell Michael that he must try and get us Parting versus whoever that winner of that is. Alright, anyway, let's jump into this game. Try and get them to postpone it. It'd be great, thank you. Okay, alright, let's jump into game number 2. Sue versus Journey. Sue currently 1 game up, and he's going to be spawning up in the northern position here on Heavy Rain. And then down to the south, we have our pink Terran. It is Journey. Both of these players from SK Telecom T1, and I have my lovely producer Finn on the job to try and get us Parting versus either Classic or Dia. And also Wake, if you are listening to this cast, you can have a part in that as well. Maybe. We'll see. So, in other words, just go and get the games, guys. Alright, so Journey's going to be a bit more aggressive in this game. Which I don't mind too much. Sue's phenomenal when it comes to that mid-game against Terrans. And as we could see as well, one of the cool things for Sue during that previous game was that despite crushing every single wave of his opponent so thoroughly through the mid-game, he was still transitioning onto Hive anyway. He was just so far ahead after doing the damage that he did early on. He got 15 workers so early, and it can be simply just too difficult to recover from that. Alright, so Refinery's on the way. So it's going to be Proxy Reapers here for Sue. For Journey even, I should say. And Sue's going to try and get this going a little bit quicker with Hatchery First. Now, because this is Hatchery First, this is going to mean that his spawning pool is a little bit delayed. That's going to mean that his queens are a little bit delayed. So there's going to be a window of time here where Journey has an opening because Sue is going to have to micro his drones around, maybe spend some money on making needless buildings that have to be made from drones that are weakened. So this could work out in Journey's favor quite heavily, especially if he somehow gets a bunker somewhere, which he may end up trying. Are you going to try it, is the question. And yeah, he's being very, very sneaky about this. So he's going to try and throw down the bunker in between these bases. Bit of a brutal spot to go down here, and Sue right now knows nothing about this. The one Overlord will end up popping and should give him vision. There we go, as it does have more vision than a building. So he could bring off a drone to start focusing down this SCV, maybe a second one, but he's decided that it's all too late. Wait a minute. Ooh, that Overlord just barely missed that barracks. But anyway, the Reaper is in. And he almost brings down that one drone. He could get it. Oh, he actually gets a different one anyway. So this is hard for Sue to deal with. Very, very difficult indeed. Again, because he went Hatchery first. Lings delayed. Queen delayed. Of course, the Lings are out now. And the SCV. Oh, the micro. He just barely squeezed out between those two drones. Or between all of those drones that were chasing him down. And the bunker does provide refuge. Looking to poke on forwards again. Queen's now out, though. That's going to help out a lot in this defense, as the Lings and Queen both go straight for the jugular here on this bunker. And, well, a nice cleanup in the end. But the thing is that forced a lot more Lings to be produced than Sue would have originally liked to have been produced. If this barracks had been at home, then these Reapers would have been there a lot later. It would have bought more time for the Queens, then they would have needed less Lings during all of that. Also, the bunker wouldn't have liked to have gone down. So Journey, in the end, I think it makes this work quite a bit. He got a few drone kills, and he's getting more Zergling kills. Has to be careful, though. He can't really jump up anymore with that many Lings out on the field, unless he knows absolutely 100% where they are. So he'll try and poke on at the natural, see if he can see the Lings there, and then maybe run back and try and jump up elsewhere. And also one of the great things about this for Journey is that during all of this harassment, he's noticed that his opponent doesn't have any gases. So he knows that speed isn't going to be out anytime soon, which makes it all the more potent because he knows he can stick around for quite a long time. Meanwhile, back at home, adds on Starport as well as Reactor with Factory. And he's going to poke in again. The Reapers are really doing work for him here. I gotta say, very, very good use of them. Despite really not getting too many kills as of late, in the past minute or so, it's still providing him with a good method to keep his opponent really on the ropes, really wary about any positioning, and still no indication for speed on the way. Of course, he does have the 2 gases that are being taken in the main, and they have been taken, but he really needs to add to those. And this has put a wrench in sOs works, just by looking at how many minerals that he has banked up right now. At one point, he had like 600 minerals banked up. Of course, he dumps a lot of that into drones. But ideally, he would like to have his 3rd base underway by now. And he's really not had room to do that. The Hellions now come along with this. Reapers are going to tank for these Hellions, and the Queens trying to berate away and get one Reaper. Actually, a slight mistake there by Journey. Could have ended up saving that. One Queen will end up falling. And certainly have to be very careful with that wounded Hellion. But now, wow, actually that's pretty cool that he brings the Viking all the way to the front as well. Because those Overlords are very vulnerable. And he knows that those are there guaranteed because of the Reaper and Hellion positionings. Whereas if he tries to send the Viking around his base and have a look for Overlords, he might actually not find them for a little bit. So Journey's continually putting on the pressure. More Hellions are going to come along and try and put on some damage at the front. The Spine Crawler should be able to shut down quite a bit of this if it's able to get up. But for now, 2 more Queens are going to end up falling. Oh, wait, one. One's on 1 health. An Overlord falls. This supply blocks sOs, and now sOs is slowly relegated to this position where he has to get roaches out with +1 weapons and try and make something happen from there, but he's going to lose another Queen. And all of this is escalated from the very beginning with that little proxy Reaper play. Very, very cool here by Journey. He's played this aggressive style out to an absolute T. Has to be careful of the roaches. They will cause him a few problems, and he'll just retreat on back. But once there's a Banshee over here, ta-da! He... this is a downward spiral. Viking's got itself 4 kills. So, really, really cool play style here from Journey in game number 2. It really looks like he's going to force it to a 3rd game. And Journey wasn't going to go down without a fight in this series. I've got to be honest. I mean, after seeing that he was able to take out sOs 2-1 in the previous series, during the Intel Extreme Masters Singapore qualifiers, then it really does give rise to the thought that, you know, Journey's probably not that bad. And he's shown it here. It looks like he's abandoning the entirety of his aggressive position now because he's a little bit too scared of how many roaches could come out. Especially after seeing the double evolution chambers as well at the front. He's like, well, do I really want to try and tackle roaches with 1-1? I should probably try and erect some kind of defense myself, because if I've seen that many roaches and I've seen these upgrades going down as well, he may try and bust me. So adding on the siege tanks is a very, very wise maneuver here by Journey. But he's looking to apply some more pressure over on the 3rd base, over on this right-hand side. And that's really kind of circumnavigating this entire middle area where the roaches would all be funneling through if they were putting on pressure. So if there were a lot of roaches piling through the middle of the map, this would have effectively drawn those units back to try and defend the 3rd base. Of course, there are a few queens here trying to help out as well, but in the end, That's all a little bit too far out of the way, especially since he repositioned his Spinecrawler as well as all of the Queens, so that Hellions just get a free charge straight on into the main. Really, really good awareness here by Journey, realizing that everything would come over to that third base to try and defend it, and gets a few worker kills. So 8 in total, unit counts now 55 workers to 52. Still in favor of Sue, but Journey's army is in a far more substantial position in comparison. And look at this, we actually have Sue realizing that, you know, I've shown roaches so early on, I've shown this ranged upgrade so early on, this probably isn't the path I should be going down, especially since, you know, roaches with range or any range upgrades in this matchup is generally a mid-game kind of focus, and Sue does not feel like he can break his opponent in the mid-game, so he's going to go straight back into those melee upgrades, try and play this game out a little bit longer, go Ling Bane Muta, and then from there on maybe try and transition to something as well. But this is a smart move from Sue. I really don't think that he could make anything work with roaches and maybe even hydralisks. It's something that we see come out a few times, but not too often. So that is why we're seeing that big transition away from that. I like it from Sue. Journey, though, his army's very formidable. I think we may end up just seeing him completely outright kill Sue at this point. Huh. I wonder... actually, it wouldn't matter anyway because Queens could shoot it from the low ground, but I wonder if siege tanks can reach that with these rocks down. But regardless, there's still a lot of firepower here for Journey. Army supplies 79 to 54. The Banelings are going to have to get very good connections with those Marines. But I don't think they're going to be really allowed to. There's a lot of aspects to this composition that you have to deal with from the Zerg's point of view. He does have the Mutalisks flying around at the back, but I don't even know if they'll come in and be useful at any time, as there are a few Marauders split at the front there to try and maybe catch out some of these Banelings where they could do. But now the full brunt of this force does move forward. It's a really cool siege tank positioning just in general on this right-hand side as well. Very hard to get around to that one with the support fire. Sue is in a lot of trouble here. Those Banelings don't even have centrifugal hooks. He drops a scan, realizing exactly where his opponent's army is, but meanwhile, that third base is guaranteed to end up falling. The Banelings do not have those centrifugal hooks, as we mentioned before, so they all end up falling, whilst there's plenty of Marines left there. GG. Journey will take the second game, and we are now into a third game indeed. So, 1-1 apiece. I am going to briefly check whilst we get invited to Frost for game number 3, whether or not we're going to be able to jump into the next one. Alrighty, so we have been invited into the next game. Okay, and the countdown has begun, so without further ado, we can get into Frost for our next game. Sue and Journey 1 apiece here at the Intel Extreme Masters Korea and Taiwanese qualifiers. A big thanks for joining me here. I understand that there is also Code A going on at the same time, but some pretty good games here nonetheless. The only downside, I guess, is the fact that we can't have the Code A players also playing in today, but a lot of time frame issues that go on here between. There's a lot of tournaments going on, so that's just how it is. All right, so let's jump into game number 3, as we have spawning up to the top right-hand corner our red Zerg. It is Sue. And then up to the top left, we have our pink Terran. It's Journey. Okay. So, right from the get-go here, good positions for Journey. Little bit harder for Sue to really fully take command of the bases that he wants to, and he's going to be left with a few decisions to make. But also, he hasn't sent his Overlord in the right direction either, so it's going to leave him a bit in the dark for a while as to what he wants to do. But by the time his second Overlord gets into the correct position, or at least one would think it would, as it's heading straight to the middle of the map. By the time he gets to that point where, you know, there's Reapers been out maybe, but it looks like we're going to see CC first maybe. I can't, on this overlay, obviously see SCVs queued up, but I'm pretty sure that there are. What were we talking about? All right, so, yeah, by the time Reapers or, you know, a Hellion Poke will get out here, because it's probably just going to be straight into the Hellion Poke after what we're seeing from Journey, then, you know, the Zerg would know where his opponent has spawned. So it's going to be CC first from Journey. Kind of to be expected on a map like this. On a map where you don't know where your opponent's spawning. And so just keeping the second Overlord in a far more defensive position than I was expecting it to be. Sent it straight through to the middle to see if anything crazy was going on, and then repositioning it so you could see if an SCV maybe was entering the fray. But behind all of this, we've seen Su now take a bit quicker a gas than he has been doing in the past couple of games. Maybe because his opponent was pretty good with the Reapers. Su felt like that was a huge hindrance to him in game number 2. And certainly doesn't want to be falling to anything like that again. But now with gas on the way here for Journey. With the command center first opening, it is a little bit hard to really make a Reaper do anything, and that's why he's going to completely go around that. He's just going to save up this gas for the factory, and then try and go for some Hellion play. Also have the bunker being added on as well for some defensive purposes. So Journey's playing this game out far more economically than we've seen him in the past 2. Which I don't mind against Su. I don't mind too much. And there we go, there's the factory. It's a little bit tricky for him here, actually, with the building placements. There's not really too much room for him to actually add on a reactor, so he's going to have to move the barracks and then add on the reactor. And even... there we go, okay, so just get that going. So it just took a little bit longer than it was expected to. A few seconds more, not too much. But then adds on the second refinery. So we could once again see the transition up to Cloak Banshees. And it looks like he's already positioning that SCV to throw down. Oh, the second factory! You know, I really wanted to say Blue Flame, but I didn't want to at the same time because I was like, no, he'll just stick to his Cloak Banshees. But he's mixing it up. And I really like this, especially since he's flying that barracks over just to add on the tech lab as well. So, a cool play. A cool play. I say he was going to play economically, and yes, technically he is, with the command center being so early, but there's going to be a huge brute force assault with that Blue Flame to maybe catch Su completely off guard. And also, Overlords are going to have a really tricky time of getting in positions to ever spot that. The one Overlord that may have been able to spot this because of these spawning positions and because of his initial direction of his Overlord is this one, right down to the south, that's trying desperately to get up to, like, here, for example, and then poke in. But it's going to take ages for him to really make that work. Well, thankfully for Su, because he saw the Hellions at this particular moment, he does have that Roach Warren on the way. Safety Roach Warren to make sure that nothing is going to happen in too crazy a manner. But Journey is doing a very smart thing, keeping his, I want to say, odd Hellions at the back, because if you see an uneven number of Hellions at the front, you've got to be thinking, wait a minute, why do you have 5 Hellions instead of 6? Or something to that effect. So there's going to be quite a few out here very quickly. But he's adding on... oh, he's adding on the Baneliness. He's getting a lot of links, and he's actually made 9 Roaches. The Roaches should be able to push this away, actually. Especially if he adds on even more Zerglings get produced. Now, he added on quite a few Overlords before that. So it's looking very aggressive here. Blue Flame, if he spots all of this moving out at the right time, he could punish this army by getting us around and then killing it off. But Blue Flame's now finished, and he does realize it now. Will he bring all of his units back, or is he just going to go straight for it? It looks like he is. This is going to be a very, very odd situation, as now it's going to be just trade for trade. He brings down the wall before anything can even happen, so he doesn't actually need Banelings to bust through this, but at the same time, the Hellions also going to work on that mineral line, killing off drone after drone. Journey's going to do quite a bit of damage. The Roaches and Queens in support here to kill off what they can, but 11 workers have already gone down. Meanwhile, the Roaches busting through at the front, trying to kill off as many SCVs as they all get pulled off the line as well. Lots of drones dying. We already have 15 gone, but also 15 SCVs in total have fallen. The Siege Tank, the saving grace here of Journey, should be able to push those away, and the Hellions have also all died as well, and in the end it equalizes out pretty much. It's 23 workers to 23. So, really, really